This is Ray Robbins with the Platinum Group. We are proud to be the exclusive sponsors of the program that you're about to watch with Dr. Ben Carson, The Missing Link, The Science to Brain Health. As health and wellness professionals, we are concerned about your quality of life. Discover what's missing for a healthier and happier life. Thank you.
Join Dr. Ben Carson for this 90-minute special presentation, The Missing Link, The Science of Brain Health, and find out what the missing links are to a healthy and vibrant brain for a lifetime. And now, Dr. Ben Carson.
Well, thanks, everyone. And thanks for those who are visiting us on television. We're delighted to see everybody here tonight. And we're going to be talking about something that's really exciting, the human brain. And for those who don't know, I'm Dr. Ben Carson, Emeritus Professor of Pediatric Neurosurgery, Oncology, Plastic Surgery, and Pediatrics at Johns Hopkins, where I worked for 36 years before recently retiring, although I've been busier since I retired, quite frankly, but that's okay. Medicine was something that always appealed to me as a youngster. Anytime I heard a story about medicine, I was right there. And I love hearing the mission stories in church because they frequently feature missionary doctors who seem like the most noble people on earth. Great personal sacrifice, traveling everywhere to do wonderful things. So when I was 8 years old, I decided that I would become a missionary doctor. And that continued to be my dream until I was 13. Then I decided maybe it'd be better to be rich. So, and then, I decided I wanted to be a psychiatrist, and I got caught up in, reading Psychology Today, and I was into all this behavioral modification stuff, and it just seemed so cool, and everybody used to bring me their problems, and I would stroke my chin, and, I was really into it. But then when I got to medical school, still convinced that I was going to be a psychiatrist, I started thinking one day, what are you really, really good at? Because I think, God gives everybody special gifts and talents. And as I analyzed my life, I realized that I had a lot of eye-hand coordination and the ability to think in 3 dimensions. And I was a very careful person, never knocked things over and said, oops. It's a good characteristic for a brain surgeon, by the way. But also, when I thought about the whole body, I said, we know so little about the brain. It's like a vast, unexplored territory. And what if I were really to get interested in brain science? It wouldn't take very long before, you could move on and perhaps become someone who really was an expert in the field, whereas if I decided to be a cardiothoracic surgeon, everybody already knows everything about the heart, so you're probably not going to be breaking new ground. So all of that made me decide to go into the field of neurosurgery. And, I started out as an adult neurosurgeon, but I very quickly discovered that, adults had a lot of issues. So whereas with the kids, what you see is what you get. And, it was so much fun dealing with the children. And you get so much pleasure out of seeing that potential blossom. And even now, after I've retired, traveling all over the country, going to different places, I run into so many of my patients. I ran into a young man a few weeks ago, very distinguished-looking young man, had on his business suit and expressed himself very well. And he said, doctor, I don't remember you, but my parents tell me when I was a baby you were the only one who would operate on me. And I just want you to see the results of your work, you know. But so that was very cool. And then there was another situation where after I finished my talk, we were having Q&A, and a lady in the back, way back in the back, stood up and said, "You won't remember me, but 20 years ago, I gave birth to a baby girl, and she had such a severe deformity that everybody said, just let her die, except for you. And I know it's your birthday today, and I just want to wish you a happy birthday. And here's my 20-year-old daughter to present you with a cake." And everybody was just so emotional. But, you know, it was just so wonderful to be able to see the results of your work. And I think people who go into medicine, that is clearly the thing that makes the biggest difference for them, being able to intervene in people's lives and being able to make a big difference. And with children, you get to make even a bigger difference, because if you're successful, the result may be, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of life, and you don't necessarily get that with old geezers. But just kidding, I like old people. But we want to start out by talking a little bit about the brain. The developing human brain. At conception, the brain actually starts to develop. It develops very, very, very rapidly. It has several different kinds of cells, but the king of cells is the neuron, which is a very complex type of cell. And it has a tail like a shooting star called the axon, and it has branches like a tree called dendrites, and that's how they communicate. But they start dividing very, very, very rapidly. And at average rate of about 3 to 400 million neurons per day. That's how fast the human brain begins to develop. So that by the time 9 months have gone by and a baby is born, you're talking about 100 billion neurons, each of which has the capacity to process, 50,000 bits of information in 1 second. So you begin to get some idea of what the potential of the human brain is. It's really quite amazing. And then, each one of those neurons contacts millions, if not billions, of others. So we're talking about trillions, maybe even quadrillions of interconnections. These are numbers that are so astonishing that it's hard to even imagine. But when you start thinking about the capacity that we have as human beings, and you begin to realize that we actually have a choice in what we do, it really is quite an amazing thing. Now, as you'll notice that when a baby is born, the head looks pretty big. It's about a third of the baby is the head. And that's the thing, when a woman is pregnant and you're trying to decide, is this baby going to come through the canal or do we have to do a C-section? They're not measuring the shoulders. They're not measuring the pelvis. They're measuring the head. That's the big thing. If you can get that through, the rest will follow. But that's because, so much of the brain has already developed over just that short span of time since conception. It really, really is quite an amazing thing. But it continues to develop very rapidly. There are other portions of the body that are really quite well developed by the time a baby is born. The liver, the heart, the kidneys, all these things are really functioning at a very mature level. The brain, however, is still proliferating madly at the time that baby is born. And those dendrites are making lots of connections. The more that baby learns, the more connections are being made. And, when that baby's born, the senses are all there. And the baby is actually able to see, is able to hear, to taste, to touch, to smell. all of that input is coming in to those brains. And based on what that baby experiences in those very first hours of life, different connections start being made. And one of the things that developmental neurosciences scientists have discovered is that babies who are interacting a lot, who are talked to, who are sung to, who are coddled, they develop those processes much better, much faster than babies who are just sort of like left to themselves. You know, some of the neurodevelopmental people, like John Watson, years ago, said that you really shouldn't be handling babies a lot. You should just sort of let them cry, and because if you coddle them too much, they'll grow up and they'll be whiny people, and they just won't be able to make it on their own. This was actually a serious school of thought some years ago. Fortunately, it has been pretty much ignored at this stage of the game. And of course, babies cry and they scream when they're hungry, and they discover fairly quickly that if they do that, somebody's going to give them something to eat. That's a good thing. This is how people become socialized, and that's how the brain synapses develop. Now, the synapses are the actual spaces between the neurons. So you have the dendrites, which are like branches, and you have the axons, and they touch each other, but there's a little space between them, which is called the synapse. And the neurotransmitters go across that synapse, sort of like on one side you have the pitcher, he's got the ball, and on the other side you got the catcher. He throws the ball, the catcher catches it, and then sets the ball on a little platform, which depresses the platform, and a signal fires off, an electrical signal. So the chemical energy turns to electrical energy. And your brain actually generates enough electrical energy from all this that's going on that if we could screw a light bulb into your head, it would actually light up, in most people's cases. So yeah, that's where the whole idea of a bright ideal came from. But I know. But by the time a baby is 3 years old, so many of these connections have formed. They've reached 90% of the growth of the brain by the time they're 3 years old. So that's pretty amazing when you think about all the other development that still has to go on at that point. And that brain continues to develop right on through adolescence, and really right on into your 20s. So when you're looking at, the frontal lobes, the neocortex there, those kinds of things are not fully myelinated and developed until you get well into your 20s. And that's why, particularly a lot of adolescents, teenagers, don't make good decisions. That's why they do things that are kind of stupid sometimes, because they really haven't had complete maturation of the brain yet. So when your teenagers get out of line, just remind them of that. And perhaps that will help them a little bit. Now, the brain, believe it or not, continues to be able to produce new connections through life. So even elderly people are able to do this. There was a myth some time ago that the number of neurons that you're born with is the number that you will always have. Only in recent years have neuroscientists discovered that you actually can develop some new neurons. Now, it is true that the vast majority you already have at the time of birth, but that's why it's so important to take care of them. But the key thing that I just said there is that even as you go into life, as you get older, you're still able to develop those connections. And an active mind tends to be a healthier mind. MRIs and CT scans have demonstrated to us that as you age, the brain actually shrinks. Why? Particularly, the frontal cortex, the hippocampus, where memories are stored. Why are those things shrinking? Perhaps because you're not using them quite as much. All of the things that you've learned, they stay with you. I could take the oldest person in this audience right here and make a little hole in the side of their head and put in some special depth electrodes into the hippocampal region and stimulate, and they would be able to quote back to me verbatim a book that they read 60 years ago. All of that material stays there. Everything you've ever seen, everything you've ever heard, everything you've ever experienced, it actually never goes away. And that's one of the reasons that it's important to put the right kinds of things in there when you're thinking about it. Now, we're ending the end of the first segment, so I don't want to get too far into some of the other things, but we're going to be talking over the course of the evening about some of the very specific functions that occur with the human brain, some of the general functions that occur with the human brain, some of the things that make us the people that we are, some of the maladies that can affect the human brain, the reaction of the brain to those maladies, and how we're able to overcome some of the things that happen to us. We're going to be talking about prevention of things that we don't want to happen, talking about how we enhance things that we do want to happen. So there's a lot of things to be thinking about. And at the very end, we're going to have an opportunity to do some questions and answers as well. So I'm looking forward to a good night, because when you really stop and think about it, what is more interesting than the human brain? Is there really anything? And I'm not biased just because I'm a brain surgeon. You stop and think about it. The kidney? Are you kidding me? What's interesting about it? Sorry if there are any nephrologists out there. Okay. But the good thing is that it all works together. And the human brain is like the master controller. And you have your central nervous system with your brain and your spinal cord, and then the peripheral nervous system, the autonomic nervous system. All of it brings in information, which is then processed and integrated by the brain, which acts as the command center. And everything else is a function of that. So if you don't have a brain, essentially, you're not alive. Your heart may be beating, and there may be some residual reflexes and functions, but you're not really there if you don't have a brain. And we will talk a little bit about that too. So we will rejoin you very shortly.
Hello, I'm Kathleen Field. We'll return to our groundbreaking program in just a few moments, but right now I'm pleased to be joined in the 8 studios by Dr. Benjamin Carson. Dr. Carson is Emeritus Professor of Neurosurgery, Oncology, Plastic Surgery, and Pediatrics at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. He's also the author of 5 books and perhaps the most famous neurosurgeon in history. Welcome, Dr. Carson.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be here for this program.
What an amazing first half of the program we just saw. What do we have to look forward to coming up next?
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about brain health, nutrition, some of the things that we can and cannot do to enhance brain function.
Okay, things that are in our control that we can take control of, which is fascinating because they leave us to believe there's nothing we can do.
Absolutely.
And there are things we can do.
We have choice.
Okay, I like that. I'm excited for the next half. Right now, we're taking a brief break, though, in the program to give you a chance to show your support for this public television station, bringing you this important program today. In return, you'll receive some thank you gifts in the form of important tools that can aid and inspire your start and your path to good brain health. We'll be hearing a lot more from Dr. Carson in just a few moments. But first, we need to take action and have you call. When you do, you're making a very important investment in your local public television station. And you're also making an investment in your own well-being. Take that first step, make the call right now. Thank you.
Dr. Ben Carson has dedicated his life to bettering the lives of others. In today's program, he shares his secret of success with you to keep your brain healthy for a lifetime. Show your support right now with a $5 sustaining monthly gift or a one-time gift of $60, and we'll say thank you by sending you the DVD, How Can I Keep a Healthy Brain? This comprehensive DVD by Dr. Carson gives you the answers to frequently asked questions about brain health and the steps you can take to maintain brain function. With your sustaining monthly gift of $10 or a one-time gift of $120, we'll say thank you by sending you 2 DVDs, Healthy Brain Tips, which includes Dr. Carson's simple exercises and nutritional tips to keep your brain vibrant, and 10 Steps to a Healthy Brain, an in-depth interview with Dr. Carson, which outlines 10 basic steps everyone should take to maintain brain health. Support this station with a sustaining monthly gift of $16 or make a one-time gift of $200, and we'll say thank you by sending you the Brain Health Master Package. In addition to each of the previous DVDs, we'll also include a DVD copy of the program you're watching. Plus, we'll send you the inspiring autobiography of Ben Carson, Gifted Hands, The Ben Carson Story. Whatever level you decide, call now, support this station, and begin your path to a healthier lifestyle. Thank you.
The dollars we raise during this program are vital. They allow us to produce and purchase the programs you enjoy here on your public television station all year long. All of the funds we raise during our membership drive stay right here with this station in this local market. So we invite you to go to your telephone and make an investment in public television. Call the number on your screen. Dr. Carson, I wanted to ask you, what's the most frequently asked question you get about brain health?
Well, I frequently get asked, why am I not good at math? Why am I not good at science? What can I do to make myself a smarter individual? And interestingly enough, those questions are answered in these DVDs.
I'm getting them for my daughter, who thinks that there's some reason girls can't be good at that, which is not true.
Completely nonsense.
All right, some of the great gifts we have today that are only available here on public television. For the $60 level, we have How I Keep a Healthy Brain, which, what do we have on here again?
And we're looking at things that you can do as an individual right now, right today, to help yourself, your children, your parents, and everybody in your environment.
Okay. And then for the $120 level, we have these 2 DVDs that actually are kind of a road path that tell us exactly what to do and follow along.
We look at a lot of the questions that people frequently ask about the brain. And we also talk about practical steps that you can take, exercises that you can do. And you don't have to spend hours and hours a day. You can devote just minutes. A half an hour a day will make an enormous difference that everybody who knows you will be able to see in a very short period of time.
Okay, that's great. And then for the whole enchilada, Dr. Carson, what do we get?
Well, you get this program, this whole program.
Okay.
And you also get the program of my life.
Oh, and this is a fabulous read, The Gifted Hands. Your life story is amazing. I love your mother behind it and everything. And it's a great, great, great story. You don't want to miss that. So the whole enchilada at the $200 level. And
the whole enchilada. And what we really want people to understand is that with the brains that we have, you are in control. The person who has the most to do with what happens to you is you. And there's absolutely no reason to sit back and think that somebody else is pulling your strings. You can pull them yourself.
So take control, right?
Absolutely.
Take control of your own health. I like that. Okay, you will have an incredible passion for helping people bettering their lives. Is this why you brought your show to public television?
That's exactly the reason. You know, that's the reason that I went into medicine in the first place, to empower people in their own lives. And what is more empowering than using your brain?
Right. I love that. Okay. Well, because of your generous support for this station, you make it possible for everyone around you to discover something new every day. And in doing so, you make this a better, smarter, and stronger community. For that, we thank you. And remember, the programs you count on really do count on you.
The easiest and best way to support 8 Arizona PBS is by becoming a sustaining member. Your monthly contribution of $5 or more comes directly from your bank account or credit card, so you know your membership is always current. It also means no more renewal notices in your mailbox. So more of your dollars go to the programs you love. It's convenient for you, greener for us, and better for the planet. Become a sustaining member today.
So we're so fortunate public television brings us such great shows such as this one. And I want to ask you, when, at what age should you start, practicing and implementing these tips that you're giving us?
Well, interestingly enough, things should start as early as a baby can hear. Because they start developing connections, things that we've talked about in some of these segments here. But it's very important when a child is able to interact to begin sitting down and reading with them and discussing what's going on, because those are the kinds of things that not only develop the relationships, but develop the pathways in the brain. And what you want to do is set a foundation for somebody who's going to be creative, imaginative, and who's going to be a real producer in our society. We have the ability to do that now. Okay,
so I did something right by reading to my 3 children out loud.
You definitely did something right. Keep that up.
All right, then that's good to hear. Okay, thank you, Dr. Carson, for bringing us this important program to public television. We really appreciate it. And thank you, all of you, for your calls and support during this intermission. It goes a long way to helping this station deliver more great programs to you all year long. Now let's return to the next segment of The Missing Link here in your local public television station.
So what does the brain actually do? There are 5 senses, and they can all be encompassed by this motion right here. The sight, smell, the taste, the hearing, and the touch. All of that information is constantly being transferred to our brains, and our brains decide what to do with that information. And that's how we interact with our environment. And then the brain sends out very sophisticated commands. It's able to integrate all that information so quickly. So if I took you up to a table with a bunch of place settings, and I said to you, shake the cup. Now, how is it that you're able to know exactly what I'm saying and to do what I ask you to do, and do it almost instantly? What has to happen for you to react to that? Well, first of all, the sound waves had to leave my lips, travel through the air, enter your external auditory meatus, travel down to your tympanic membrane, set up a vibratory force, which travel across the ossicles of your middle ear to the oval and round windows, which set up a vibratory force in the endolymph, which mechanically distort the microcilia, which convert mechanical energy to electrical energy, which travels across your cochlear nerve to the cochlear nucleus at the pontomedullary junction, from there to the superior olivary nucleus, ascending bilaterally up the brainstem through the lateral meniscus to the inferior colliculus and immediate geniculate nuclei across the thalamic radiations to the posterior temporal lobes to begin the auditory processing. What the heck did he say? And then, and then that's transferred to the frontal lobes, and then through projections called the tract du jour and some of the others, it retrieves the memory from the meta-hippocampal structures and the mammary bodies back to the motor response at the bet cell level, coming down the cortical spinal tract, across the internal capsule to the cerebral peduncles, descending down to the cervical medullary decussation, into the spinal gray matter, synapsing there, going out to the neuromuscular junction, stimulating the nerve and the muscle so you can grab the cup and shake it. And all of that happens in a split second, in a nanosecond. And your brain has processed all that, including going and analyzing all your memory banks to see what is a cup and what does shake mean. And it gives you some idea of the capacity of your brain. You could actually do a whole lot more than that. And there are many inhibitory things going on while you were doing that. And if we talked about that, we could spend the whole night just talking about what you had to do in order to shake that cup. And it really gives you some impression of what it's doing. And then there's a lot of specific functions. Learning, obviously. Memory, laying down the memory tracks. Motor control over everything you do. Emotions. Things like imagination, creativity. All of those things, functions, obviously, of the brain. I remember, as a youngster, being not such a great student. And then my mother made me start reading. And what an impact that had on me. Because what happens when you start reading? First of all, you're looking at words all the time. So you learn how to spell. You can always tell a reader because they know how to spell. And then because you have to put those words together, you learn grammar and syntax. So readers also tend to be able to express themselves a bit better. And then you have to take those sentences and make them into concepts. So you use your imagination. The use of your imagination, the use of your brain in that way, causes all of those tracks to proliferate even more. Your brain actually grows. Children, for instance, who are abused and who are neglected, tend to have smaller brains than those who are stimulated all the time. They have brains that are ready and willing to be able to grasp new information all the time. There's another part of your brain, the more rudimentary portion, the brainstem, the midbrain, that's responsible for just stuff that you really don't need to be bothered with, like your heart rate and your breathing and some of the things that maybe a lizard does. And in fact, here's what's interesting. If you take the brain of a lizard and look at it, it kind of looks like a human brainstem. But lizards, all they have to do is sort of this basic stuff. For the most part, lizards don't engage in complex thoughts. And unfortunately, some people tend to act like lizards. But, we but we have the capacity and the ability to do so much more. Now, you've got this gigantic engine, your brain. How do you control it? Well, that's where your willpower comes in. Willpower is really a magnificent thing. It's something that says, I am in control of my brain. I will tell it what to do rather than it telling me what to do. A lot of people don't exercise it, but you've probably noticed there's some people who smoke and then they say, I'm going to stop. I had a friend, he was the chief of pediatric neurology at Hopkins, and he would smoke, and we enacted a smoke-free thing, and he would still smoke, and one of the administrators came to him and said, stop smoking, you can't do that. And he just lights a cigarette and blows smoke in his face. I mean, but then one day, it dawned on him that the damage that can be done to you personally is so significant and will impact your life to the degree that he said, this is my last cigarette. He put it down and he never smoked again. That is enormous willpower. Now, why was he able to do that and other people are not able to do that? They both have similar brains. He had a very deep understanding of the long-term deleterious effect of smoking. And a lot of times when people get into these willpower struggles, it's because they derive more pleasure from whatever it is than their ability to understand the long-term problems and consequences of what's going on. So when you're incentivized, to change what you're doing, you will do it. Some people say, I can't help it. I'm a kleptomaniac. I see something, I like it, it's right there in front of me, I take it. But guess what? If they knew that if they took it, they would be electrocuted, they wouldn't take it. It makes a difference in the way that you do things. Incentives change the way that we do things, interestingly enough. I remember one of my colleagues, his wife, I could never remember her name. Never. 100 times. I would always forget her name. And so she came up to me one day and she said, "What's my name?" And, there was just no escape. And so I had to admit that I had forgotten her name. And she says, "I'm going to tell you my name one more time. The next time I see you, if you don't know my name, you're dead meat." I never forgot her name. But, it really kind of depends on your understanding of things. That's how complicated our brains are. That's how all of these different functions, including the memory, work to control our actual behavior. And, there's a lot of benefits to us to being able to exercise our willpower. Exercise. We all, at the beginning of the year, we're going to exercise, 7 days a week, and then it gets down to 5 days a week, and then 1 day, and then 1 day a month, and then maybe I'll exercise, and that's a willpower issue. But the people who really stick with it frequently are the very people who have had members of their family or close friends who've suffered a heart attack or had other complications associated with obesity. All of that is processed in terms of whether they will have the will to stick to it. And that helps us, with our physical well-being as well as with our emotional well-being. There are lots of types of addictions that occur. There are physical addictions. There are psychological addictions. With the physical addictions, your body actually gets so used to something that there are changes in the neurochemicals in your brain. And if you suddenly stop doing that, the chemical changes don't just disappear. And your brain and your body subsequently have real physical consequences that you have to suffer. And, people will start sweating. They'll have palpitations of their heart. They'll have other manifestations of anxiety. With psychological addictions, you may not get those same things, although it is possible. Because remember, the brain controls all the other parts of the body. We're all sitting here very calmly right now. But what if a hungry tiger walked in here? He didn't even touch us. But what would happen? Your heart rate would go up. You would start sweating. There could be some change with your bowel pattern. Or, there are a variety of things that would happen, even though the tiger never touched you. So when you're talking about psychological addictions, it can still cause your heart rate to go up. It can cause a lot of things that chronically create a problem. And that brings us into the whole area of stress and stress-related diseases. It's because of that stress, because of that constant bombardment of some of the synapses and areas of the body with epinephrine, norepinephrine, adrenaline. That's not supposed to be happening. And it puts stress on different portions of your system that shouldn't necessarily be there. And stress can actually affect your white blood cells, can affect your whole immune system. And so it doesn't work as well. Your immune system plays such a vitally important role in your total health because your body is constantly under attack from the outside environment. There are bacteria, there are viruses, there are neoplastic processes, cancers forming. All of us in this room, since the beginning of the year, have formed cancerous growths in our body. But our immune systems, in most cases, have detected them, zeroed in on them, and destroyed them. So if you stop and you take that to its logical conclusion, people who live very stressful lives are probably more likely to develop a host of maladies because the other portions of their body are not working optimally. So learning how to lead a stress-free life makes a huge, huge difference. Now, what's good for your brain as you're developing? This is particularly important for those who are parents and grandparents. Constant stimulation. You know, for a little baby, for toddlers, talking to them, interacting with them, as opposed to sitting them in front of the television and, you know, giving them video games to play with all the time. Not that those things don't create new connections and synapses, but not nearly at the same rate as being able to sit down with you and to interact with you in a way that increases their learning. Because when you interact with them, as opposed to when the television or the video game interacts with them, you are reacting to them, and you are seeing what they know, and you are guiding them. And the video games and the television really doesn't do that, so it doesn't work nearly as effectively in terms of that kind of development. Other kinds of things that are really good for the developing brain, good nutrition. Make sure that you eat well-balanced meals. It's a good thing if you can to only eat 2 or 3 such meals a day, as opposed to constantly eating, which some people do, because when you eat a big meal or you eat frequently, blood gets diverted away from other parts of the body. Your brain needs about 20% of blood flow and of the oxygen. And if you're diverting that constantly into the splanchnic bed, into the mesenteric bed, then you're not getting it in the brain. You know, one of the things that you've probably noticed is after you eat a big meal, you get kind of drowsy. Why do you get kind of drowsy? Because the blood's being drawn away from your brain. So, you know, if you have to do some important studying, there's a lot of things that you have to learn. Don't eat a big meal first. You know, let the big meal be your reward after you've done those kinds of things. That helps out tremendously. Keeping the brain well hydrated. It's almost like the most important thing you can do. Doesn't work well. Pathways are not well laid when you don't do that. Getting adequate sleep and the right kind of sleep. Some people say, well, maybe if I just sleep 2 hours here, 2 hours here, 3 hours here, it'll be okay. People who say that don't understand sleep. When you sleep, there are a number of stages of sleep. You get deeper and deeper. Finally, you get to the lowest level, REM sleep, rapid eye movement. That's why it's called REM sleep. And a lot of very important conflicts in your life are being worked out during REM sleep. It's very important. Some people say, well, I don't have REM sleep. That's when you dream. They say, I don't dream. Everybody dreams, okay, whether you know it or not. But as you rise back up from the REM sleep, you know, those things become part of your subconscious, and that's why you don't remember them. But if you wake up somebody during rapid eye movement sleep, they will know exactly what they dreamed about because they haven't had a chance to resuppress all of those issues that are going on in their life. So, you know, that's very important. And also in terms of being able to lay down those biochemical pathways in the brain, sleep is a very important part of doing that. Now, let me just go back and re-emphasize how we learn things and how we remember things. It's those pathways that are created by those neurons contacting each other. It's almost like if you have a lawn and you walk across it, someone coming immediately after you can sort of see where the grass is bent down, and they say, I think somebody went through there. But a day later, you can't really see that they went through there. But if you go that same path several times, they will be able to tell you went through it. And if you keep going through it, pretty soon there's no grass, there's a pathway there. That's exactly the way the brain works. And that's why practice makes perfect. You know, you'll see somebody who can play a piano concerto from memory. It's because, you know, they've done it so many times, those pathways are there. Now, if for some reason they stop playing for a long time and they sit down to play, they're going to have a little bit of trouble, although they can get it back a lot faster than somebody who never had it before. So that's why, you know, certain people tend to be terrific learners, because they have a whole lot of different pathways that they can use. You take what you have to get what you want. So we're going to come back shortly with another segment and really talk about the potential of the human brain. Talk a little bit about how the brain responds to certain types of injuries, the whole concept of plasticity, how we can take advantage of that, a little bit about you know, attention deficits, what they really are, how we can overcome those kinds of things. So we will be back with you very shortly.
Another great segment we just watched, exciting information. And I guess neuroplasticity, huge topic we're hearing about, getting those neurons firing and...
It's a fabulous topic which we go to in some detail in the video. But, you know, what's really exciting is that it's not only in children, it's also in adults.
That's great. So we can take some of these great DVDs that we have and use some of these tips then to actually get our brains to, you know, re-establish themselves, or what would you say?
To get the maximum potential out of them. And not only for ourselves, but for our children. Okay. Because the early environment and how we formulate that environment has an enormous impact on what happens to them, as we also discuss in one of these.
Okay. Dr. Carson has provided us with some very helpful gifts. And for your pledge right now is the time to join the 8 family, because the Platinum Group has offered a special challenge. I'm going to turn it over right now to Ray Robbins of the Platinum Group to explain just how your pledge can be doubled. Ray?
Thank you very much, Kathleen. I am so excited to be part of this public television special. We at the Platinum Group so believe in public television and in Dr. Carson's message of how to have a healthier, smarter, and happier life through good brain health. That we sponsored the program because of our beliefs. And now I'd like to challenge all of you with an additional gift to this public television station of up to $5,000. That's right. For any of you who pledge in the next 8 minutes, we will match those donations up to an additional $5,000. This is a tremendous benefit to this station as well as to you when you receive Dr. Carson's in-depth and important products to help assist you in achieving a healthy brain for a healthier, smarter, and happier life. Call now. Make that pledge. Thanks. Kathleen?
Okay, Dr. Carson, this is the time. This is the big time. They've got 8 minutes now to take advantage. Only 8 minutes. And that goes by, quickly?
Absolutely.
All right, to take advantage of this opportunity. So let's get that clock started and those phones ringing right now.
Right now.
Dr. Ben Carson has dedicated his life to bettering the lives of others. In today's program, he shares his secret of success with you to keep your brain healthy for a lifetime. Show your support right now with a $5 sustaining monthly gift or a one-time gift of $60, and we'll say thank you by sending you the DVD, How Can I Keep a Healthy Brain? This comprehensive DVD by Dr. Carson gives you the answers to frequently asked questions about brain health and the steps you can take to maintain brain function. With your sustaining monthly gift of $10 or a one-time gift of $120, we'll say thank you by sending you 2 DVDs, Healthy Brain Tips, which includes Dr. Carson's simple exercises and nutritional tips to keep your brain vibrant, and 10 Steps to a Healthy Brain, an in-depth interview with Dr. Carson which outlines 10 basic steps everyone should take to maintain brain health. Support this station with a sustaining monthly gift of $16 or make a one-time gift of $200 And we'll say thank you by sending you the Brain Health Master Package. In addition to each of the previous DVDs, we'll also include a DVD copy of the program you're watching. Plus, we'll send you the inspiring autobiography of Ben Carson, Gifted Hands, the Ben Carson Story. Whatever level you decide, call now, support this station, and begin your path to a healthier lifestyle. Thank you.
We're very excited about bringing you this program today and being able to present to you this wonderful assortment of educational and instructional material to help to get you on the path to improving your brain health awareness. To encourage you to support this station, we have a couple of suggested giving levels for you to consider. All of them are exclusive to public television donors. These are our thank you gifts, and they're not available anywhere else. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's right. All right, so our first thing for the $60 level, we have How Can I Keep a Healthy Brain? And tell me a little bit about, I guess I want to talk about memory and retention, because this is, we always say we have senior moments, is what people say. You kind of address a little bit about this?
Yeah, it's a matter of challenging your brain and being active. You know, a lot of elderly people, they say, I'm getting old, I can't remember. Well, that's a pretty horrible thing to say. And then you see others who say, I'm taking this and my memory is much better. Well, if they think their memory is much better, it is much better. But we'll talk about practical things that actually work.
Okay, I like that. For the $120 level, you get the 2 DVDs, Healthy Brain Tips and 10 Steps to a Healthy Brain. We talked about positive thinking being another one. Give us another tip that you've got.
Well, practice is another tip for having a healthy brain. Practice learning poems, learning passages, things that you actually want to remember, and make it your goal this day or this week to learn this one, and the next week to learn that one. That keeps the mind extremely active. And even when you're laying in bed at nighttime and you can't go to sleep, say, let's see, what was that poem I wanted to remember? It's amazing what that will do for you over the course of time.
Okay, that's an easy tip. And then for the $200 level, you get everything. I can't hold them all up, but I will tell you, you get everything here, all these DVDs. And you also get this amazing book, Gifted Hands by Dr. Ben Carson. I read the book, I saw the movie. It's absolutely amazing life story that you have. And your mother, I love your mother. And
the thing that she used to always ask us, do you have a brain? You know, when you would do something really stupid, that was the question she would ask, to bring out the point that you actually have the ability to think these things through. It really doesn't matter what John or Susan or Mary or Robert or anybody else said or did, if you have your own brain and your own ability to think. And, you know, hearing that from the time I was a young child really, I think, made a big difference, both for me and for my brother.
And please remember that this package is exclusive to public television. You can't find this wealth of information anywhere else but right here in exchange for your support of your local PBS station. And now let's check in again with Ray Robbins of the Platinum Group. Ray?
We have just a few more minutes on our challenge. The Platinum Group will match donations up to $5,000. Make that donation right now and you can double your pledge.
And thank you, Ray Robbins of the Platinum Group, for doubling the pledges. What a great time, right, to do it. There wasn't a better
fabulous.
time.
Can be better.
For public television, go public television.
Absolutely.
And go Brain Health. Think about how many times you've been flipping through that dial and you find yourself right here on public television enjoying a show on this station. It's not by accident. It's because it's part of our mission to bring you programs that give your curious mind a place to spend time. But we do it largely with your help. Your gift of support makes everything possible. So make that pledge to this station. Call or go online right now with whatever amount you can contribute. Thank you so much. Now let's check in one more time with Ray Robbins of the Platinum Group. Ray?
Thank you, Kathleen. It's almost time to get back to Dr. Carson's fascinating program, but you have just a few more minutes to double your pledge. The Platinum Group believes in public television and Dr. Carson's message of how to keep a healthy brain, and we are glad to provide this challenge to match up to $5,000. But you have to do your part. Go to the phones right now and make that pledge. Support this station and give yourself the gift of a healthier brain. Do it now before the clock runs out. Thank you. Kathleen?
Thank you again to Ray Robbins of the Platinum Group for doubling the pledges of that hour. Dr. Carson, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
And, you know, you talked about exercises. Is it aerobic? Is it strength training? What type of exercise?
Actually, I'm talking about mental exercises.
Mental, okay.
Deciding that you're going to memorize a poem. One stanza this day, the next stanza the next day. Those kinds of exercises. And also, take a list of things that you want to memorize and make it into a story. And you'll be amazed. Pretty soon you won't need the story. You'll know the list and you'll know it in order.
Life-changing information that you've given us to really augment what's out there already. This is new stuff that we have here. This is exclusive to our viewers here in PBS. Can you run through us kind of what we get for the contributions that we're making to the station?
Well, I can see how my memory's working, having heard you do this a few times. At the beginning level, which is the $60 level, you get How Can I Keep a Healthy Brain? And this really looks at some of the overall principles about brain health and total body health. If you move to the next level, which is the $120 level, you get 10 steps to a healthy brain and healthy brain tips. Very practical information about not only you, but your children, your aging parents. What can you do in all of those situations to maximize the health of our brains? And then if you move to the $200 level, you get the whole enchilada, everything we just talked about, plus you get this program, the whole program, and you get the book, Gifted Hands, which is an autobiography of my life.
It's an amazing, amazing book. You really, really want this book. It's a great story behind here. And all of this, if someone's saying, how long does it take me to do all this a day? How many minutes a day would it be to add these tips that you're giving us on these DVDs into our lives?
Well, it really kind of depends on how much and how fast you want to do it. But I think a few minutes a day up to a half an hour could make an enormous difference. I always tell people just to devote a little bit of time to your brain. We don't mind, doing weightlifting and jogging. How about working with our brain a little bit?
Use it or lose it.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Carson, for
Pleasure.
being here with us today and for bringing this important program to public television. Thank you for all of you who've called in your support during this short intermission. It goes a long way to helping this station deliver more great programs to you all year long.
The easiest and best way to support 8 Arizona PBS is by becoming a sustaining member. Your monthly contribution of $5 or more comes directly from your bank account or credit card, so you know your membership is always current. It also means no more renewal notices in your mailbox. So more of your dollars go to the programs you love. It's convenient for you, greener for us, and better for the planet. Become a sustaining member today.
And now let's return to the conclusion of The Missing Link here on your local public television station.
We as human beings are so incredibly smart. We're different than other animals. If you look at a human brain compared to virtually any other animal, the thing that really stands out is these huge, well-developed frontal lobes. That's where we engage in rational thought processing. We're the ones with the ability to extract information from the past and the present, integrate it into a plan, and project it into the future so that we can actually plan and strategize, control our lives, learn from the experiences of others. That's what wise people do. They don't have to experience everything themselves. They can learn from other people's triumphs, other people's mistakes. But, because I was going through this stressful part of my life, I was reading all this material that I was getting about health, about nutrition. I was analyzing all the products that I was getting. And I came to an understanding that, stress and poor nutrition play a large role in all the maladies that occur in our bodies. And how can we best get a grip on those things? And I began to understand that the foods that we eat play an enormous role in our immune system and in our general health. But even though the foods that are provided for us, that grow out of the earth, have a lot of nutritional value, because we live in a fast-paced modern society, we tend to process those foods. So by the time we get through processing them, they taste awfully good, but they frequently do not have the same nutritional value. And therefore, even though we may eat until we're satisfied, satiety issues are not a problem, we aren't necessarily getting the nutritional value that we need. So as I analyzed all those things, I began to realize that that was a significant portion of my problem. And I started trying to figure out, how do you get that supplementation? Well, I became particularly interested in glycoscience, glyconutrients. These things are in your apples, and your bananas, and your beets, and in everything that's growing. But by the time we get them, they frequently are gone. And I discovered that you can actually concentrate those in powders and pills and things like that. And there are a number of different types of vitamins and supplements that are there. I advise people to actually look into this. The ideal thing would be to go live in the Himalayas and just eat all the natural things that they eat. You probably live to be 110, but that's probably not practical. So the more practical thing is to find out, what are those kinds of things that exist that we can take that will bring us as close as possible to the ideal type of setting, so that we present to our bodies all the things that it needs. You'll see websites that are pushing vitamin E or the B vitamins or this thing or that thing. The important thing is to present your body with a smorgasbord of things so that it has the ability to pick out what it needs when it needs it. And, that kind of rational thinking is what allows us to get the maximum out of our lives, to extend our lives. And I frequently say, if everybody ate 3 well-balanced meals a day, drank 6 to 8 glasses of water or water-equivalent substances, exercised regularly, got regular sleep, and didn't put harmful substances into their bodies, most of us in medicine would be out of business. Having said that, it's a great career, because people aren't going to do that. You know they're not going to do that. So you really don't have to worry too much. I'm frequently fascinated when people say, I actually am very, very healthy. I just happen to be obese because I don't really eat that much. How many times have you heard that? I have a gland problem, they say. They do have a gland problem. It's a salivary gland, and you have to learn how to control it, because there is no such thing as the spontaneous generation of fat. It simply doesn't happen. And we talked a little earlier about what happens when you have the wrong kinds of things floating in your blood and how it can clog up arteries and things like that. So we really need to be very serious about taking personal responsibility for what happens in our lives. And we do have this thing right here, which gives us a tremendous advantage compared to other kinds of creatures. That's what makes us so incredibly smart. Now, as a pediatric neurosurgeon, one of the reasons that I enjoy pediatrics is because of the resilience of the brain. You could do a hemispherectomy, an operation in which you remove half of the brain. And those children could still do okay. You can't do that in adult. Why? Because in children, you have the ability to reconnect. And some of the neurons that haven't quite decided what they want to do when they grow up can be recruited to do things that the other ones were doing before. And it makes a huge, huge difference in terms of the kinds of procedures that one can do. And they can be pretty radical. You can't do that as much in adults, although we have discovered in recent years that there is a degree of plasticity that occurs in the adult brain too, particularly by using MRIs and PET scans. We are able to see a lot of these new connections that are being made in adults. When we learn how to really maximize that and perhaps how to integrate stem cells into it, I think we're going to see a revolution in terms of the way that we can treat many of the diseases of the brain. But remember, the brain does have the ability to do a lot of things itself. I also had to deal with a lot of children in traumatic situations. I remember a 4-year-old girl who got hit by an ice cream truck. And when I came in that morning and the PICU staff was presenting the case to me, and they said, she doesn't have very much function, but her pupils at least are still reacting. And I opened the lid and shined a light in, and the pupil was not reacting. I said, I thought you said the pupils react. They said, they were just a few minutes ago. And I said, that means this just happened. And I grabbed the bed, and I tell somebody else, grab the other end of the bed, and we just ran to the operating room. Didn't even tell them we were coming. I said, find an empty room, take this patient in it. We're going to decompress the head. I ran into a senior neurosurgeon on the way, told him what was going on. He said, you are wasting your time. It is a total waste of your time. Why? I don't know why you're doing this. But I went ahead with it. It decompressed the brain. Afterwards, her pupils were still fixed and dilated. But she had brain activity. Her electroencephalogram was okay. Cerebral blood flow was okay. So we knew that blood was getting to the brain and that there was activity there, even though she wasn't manifesting, any activity. Well, over the course of a couple of weeks, she began to actually react to us. Make a long story short, she actually walked out of the hospital. And not too long ago, I saw her. I saw her and her 4-year-old daughter at that time. So, the whole cycle goes through. Those things are very gratifying. But, that's a very different situation, for instance, than the little girl that's been on the news recently who is brain dead. Studies demonstrate that there's no blood flow to the brain. There's no electrical impulses coming from the brain. As I said before, the brainstem, the midbrain, those things control very rudimentary functions. So that a person who really doesn't have any cognitive ability and doesn't have any activity going on in the neocortex can actually still have a heart that beats, can still have spinal reflexes, which can be very confusing to people because even though the brain's not doing anything, you touch a certain area. And there's a spinal reflex because that peripheral nerve still circulates up to the spinal cord, goes into the gray matter, affects the motor response, comes back out. It has really nothing to do with what's going on up here. And sometimes, people just don't understand that. I think we have to be very, very compassionate in those situations and understanding. But, there's certain things that, we as human beings simply can't do. And bringing a dead brain back, unfortunately, happens to be one of them. Well, I want to touch a little bit on learning. Probably the most important thing that our brain does, and learning styles. We all learn differently, interestingly enough. And one of the reasons that some children have so much difficulty when they're put into the cookie cutter type situation is because you're teaching to the middle, or you're teaching to this section or that section, and you're having no effect on them at all. And, as we become more sophisticated, we have to find ways to address that. Some of the computer programs that exist now actually are very useful in that regard. There are some programs that can look at the way somebody solves a series of math problems and know what it is that they don't know by looking at the way that they solve it, and go back and tutor them on that, which is the same thing a very good teacher can do. The problem is, the teacher may have 30 students in the class and can't do that for every one of them, whereas a computer can do that. But the point here is that we must come to an understanding that people learn differently. When I entered medical school, I was so happy, finally to medical school. And then I did terribly on the first set of comprehensive exams. And I was sent to see my counselor. He looked at my record, said, "You seem like an intelligent young man. Bet there are a lot of things you could do outside of medicine." And he said, "You're not cut out for medicine. And we can help you get into another program, so you will not have lost a year." And that seemed like a kind thing, but it was devastating. The only thing I'd ever wanted to do since I was a little kid is be a doctor. So I went back to my apartment, quite depressed. I said, "Lord, help me figure this out." And I started thinking about my life. I said, what kind of things have you always excelled in? Where have you struggled? What are the commonalities? I realized that I did very well in courses where I did a lot of reading, and that I didn't do well in courses where I listened to a lot of boring lectures. Because, I don't get anything out of boring lectures, like zero. And there I was listening to 6 to 8 hours worth of them every day. So I was basically wasting 6 to 8 hours a day. So I made an executive decision to skip the boring lectures, to spend that time reading. The rest of medical school was a snap after that. And I remember going back to my medical school many years later as the commencement speaker, and I was looking for that guy because I was going to tell him he wasn't cut out to be a counselor. Because, some people are just negative. They always tell you why something can't be done, but they never invest any time and energy into how it can be done. And, those people who are using their brains maximally, need to invest their energies in solutions. That's why we have these complex brains, and that's why we have the ability to integrate information from the past. It doesn't even have to be from our past. We're able to learn from somebody else's past. We're able to look and see what they did. What is the consistent pattern that happens when somebody does this, or when a society does this, when a nation does this? Is there any variation on that? And is there something that we can learn from that? It really is truly amazing, the capacity that we have. And, some neuroscientists have told us that you can't overload the brain. If you learned one new fact every second, it would take you about 3 million years to reach capacity on the brain. So no one ever needs to be concerned when someone tells you, "Don't learn that, you'll overload your brain." You absolutely do not have the ability to do that, and really shouldn't be thinking about it. But also, a lot of times people say, "I'm not good at this. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at science." How many times have you heard people say that? I'm here to tell you tonight, it's not true. If you have a normal brain, then you have a potential to be good at math and science. Because in a sense, it's just like reading. Most people can read pretty easily. Why? Because they know all 26 letters of the alphabet. What if you only knew 21 of them? You'd still know the vast majority of them. You would think you could still read. Let's say the only ones you didn't know are A, D, O, S, and T. When you sat down to read, what would you say? You would say, "This is too difficult. I can't read. That's for somebody else." And yet, if I went back and filled in those 5 letters, voila, all of a sudden, reading is easy. Science and math, exactly the same. Everything builds on something else. If you have the building blocks, it makes great sense. And if you don't have the building blocks, it very rapidly becomes unintelligible. And so what it tells us is that in our educational system, we need to concentrate on early education, upon putting the solid blocks in there. You'll notice that, kids in kindergarten, first and second grade, if you ask them, what's your favorite subject? Math and science. You'll never hear that by the time you get to the 6th or 7th grade, because, it's our fault as a society, but we have the ability to learn, to analyze this information and put into place the things that can correct that and that can correct it relatively rapidly. What is true success? Is it a big house and a big bank account and fancy titles? Or is it the ability to use this to improve not only your life, but the life of all the other people around you? That is what true success is, and that is why we have the brain. Thank you.
What a tremendous show we just finished watching. So much information there, and so much more information than we have here at hand. I am so grateful you came to share this with us, and I think to appreciate, no matter what age, this information is applicable.
Every single age group is covered here, as long as you have a brain. What could be more exciting than finding a way to make your brain function better?
And I like it that it's in your control, too. It's something that you can do at home, and you can take these tips at home.
Right.
And I think it starts through a lot of these DVDs. I know at the $60 level, How Can I Keep a Healthy Brain, which touches on
the things that you can do today to improve not only the function of your brain, but to help your children, to help your aging parents, to help anybody who has a brain. And hopefully that's everybody here.
Okay, I'm taking this one home. I need this. And for the $120 level, we have 2 DVDs, Healthy Brain Tips and 10 Steps to a Healthy Brain. And this outlines exactly kind of what a plan we should do? Or
And it includes a lot of the questions that people have about the brain and how do they maximize its potential, and what do they do for their children, what do they do for their aging parents. All of it's included.
I like this because the program is really for every age, from the day you're born to the day
as long as you have a brain.
As long as you have a brain, I like that. The $200 level, you get everything. You get this show that you just watched, plus these 3 DVDs, and this incredible book by Dr. Carson, Gifted Hands. I read the book, I saw the movie, I loved it, I identified with your mother, and I'd have to say one thing your mother would probably say. She said, turn off the TV. You could select 2 shows you could watch.
That's correct.
But otherwise, turn off that TV. But I think she would approve PBS.
I believe that public television would be on the approved list. And, as a youngster, I particularly enjoyed the nature pictures that they did. But, there were so many informational programs. And that's what we need. And this is something that I think helps to develop the brain, as opposed to the sex and violence and stuff that we see every place else. We don't see any of that on public television.
Thank goodness.
And that's good.
Yeah, that's so true. So where else do you find this but PBS, with the great shows like this that you can learn from? Thank you, Dr. Carson.
My pleasure.
Call right now and get one of the wonderful gifts we have for you today. I know we say this often, but it really rings true. The programs you count on you.
Dr. Ben Carson has dedicated his life to bettering the lives of others. In today's program, he shares his secret of success with you to keep your brain healthy for a lifetime. Show your support right now with a $5 sustaining monthly gift or a one-time gift of $60, and we'll say thank you by sending you the DVD, How Can I Keep a Healthy Brain? This comprehensive DVD by Dr. Carson gives you the answers to frequently asked questions about brain health and the steps you can take to maintain brain function. With your sustaining monthly gift of $10 or a one-time gift of $120, we'll say thank you by sending you 2 DVDs, Healthy Brain Tips, which includes Dr. Carson's simple exercises and nutritional tips to keep your brain vibrant, and 10 Steps to a Healthy Brain, an in-depth interview with Dr. Carson, which outlines 10 basic steps everyone should take to maintain brain health. Support this station with a sustaining monthly gift of $16 or make a one-time gift of $200, and we'll say thank you by sending you the Brain Health Master Package. In addition to each of the previous DVDs, we'll also include a DVD copy of the program you're watching. Plus, we'll send you the inspiring autobiography of Ben Carson, Gifted Hands, The Ben Carson Story. Whatever level you decide, call now, support this station, and begin your path to a healthier lifestyle. Thank you.
Please remember that this package is exclusive to public television. You cannot find this wealth of information anywhere else but right here, in exchange for your support of this station, your local PBS station. One thing, Dr. Carson, I think that is so important and we hear about today is nutrition, and it's changing, I think, even overall the whole country's health that we're looking at, but
yes.
How it really impacts our brain health.
It does. And, you know, when I was in medical school, they didn't teach a whole lot about nutrition. But that has changed quite a bit now, because I think everybody recognizes that it is the foundation of good health. And of course we spend some time talking about that because unless your body is healthy, your brain cannot be healthy. And so they are very much interrelated. And also, you know, the role of hydration, how important that is to the brain. And we also talk about those elements that we put into our bodies that are not particularly healthy for our brain. So you have to look at all of this as a unit. What to put in, what not to put in, how to keep it hydrated, how to keep it healthy, and how to keep it active.
Okay. And another big thing, I guess, that we're all dealing with is stress. The effects of stress on the brain, because we are under a lot of stress.
Yeah. Well, you know, particularly in the society that we live in today, enormous amounts of stress, a lot of it frankly self-imposed, probably not necessary, but you know, looking at ways to decrease stress. You know, stress actually impacts on your immune system. It impacts upon your hormonal system, which impact upon all the other parts of the body. So you can see why having a lot of stress in your life can affect virtually every part of your body, because it affects the brain so much, which is the master control center.
Okay. And do you have tips on here to tell us how to deal with stress and what we can do?
Of course,
Okay.
absolutely. Get rid of stress in your life and you will add years to your life. There's no question about that. You'll also look better. You won't have so many wrinkles and all kinds of horrible things going on in your life.
Just by those two things, nutrition and stress.
Yeah.
And you know what I really like about it? It's not a pill that you take. It doesn't cost you really anything, does it? It's just choices that you make.
Choices that you make. And that is such an important thing, I think, that comes out in all of this material, that we are in control. Mm-hmm. Nobody else controls who we are and who we become except for us.
I like that. From the doctor. That's great. Thank you, Dr. Carson. Call the number on your screen right now. When you invest your financial support, you create a richer future for everyone in this community. We thank you for this. Thank you. You may be asking yourself, why is my support right now so important? Well, the dollars we raise during this program are vital. They allow us to produce and purchase the programs you enjoy here on this public television station all year long. That's why these drives are so important. All the funds we raise during our membership drives stay right here in this community with this public television station. So right now we invite you to pick up your phone and make an investment in this station and in your community. Call the number on your screen and get one of the wonderful thank you gifts we have waiting for you, and help support the great programs you love on your public television station. Remember, the programs you count on really do count on you. Dr. Carson, I mean, this is just such I'm just so overwhelmed with the great information that I've learned from the show. And I want to ask you too, integrative medicine, it's a big thing that people are talking about now. Tell me what you feel about that and how that plays a role.
Well, what it means to me is that we're becoming more enlightened, and we're recognizing that, you know, it's not just the kidney and the heart and the brain, but everything works together. And we're also learning that, you know, there are lots of different approaches. You know, there's allopathic, there's osteopathic, you know, there's naturalistic. There are all of these things, all of which have some validity. And we have to stop being closed-minded. We have to stop, it can only be done this way kind of business. That doesn't work in anything, including medicine. And so I see it as a very, very positive trend of being able to be what I call an eclectic. You know, take the best from here, the best from here, and integrate it together as long as you understand what your objective is. Where are you trying to go? When you understand that, it's very easy to use lots of different ways to get there.
That is huge from an allopathic doctor, when a lot of people feel that a lot of times they don't always want to support alternative medicines, but you feel all of them can meld together.
Absolutely. When again, you understand what your objective is. That is the key.
Okay.
You can't be an ideologue.
Okay, I like that. All right, some of the great gifts we have today that are only available here on public television.